All righty. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in as we get this third episode of the Lunarian News Network going with a hype train. Everyone, thank you so much for your generosity on behalf of the Free Enterprise channel. This is pretty awesome. And if you are getting some new subs and whatnot, you might notice a little something different, but I will let my guest here talk about this. But before we do that, my name is Bonnie Vaughn. I am going to be your host for tonight. And with me, I have the one, the only, the effervescent SchalaKitty. Schala, how are you doing? It's good to see you.
We got a problem. I'm only getting a white screen for.
Oh no! You don't see me?
I don't see you. What's going on?
Yeah,
Okay.
I was gonna say it is good to see you, but I don't actually see you. Is there something going on here?
Okay. I got an idea. I got an idea about the best way to handle a tech problem, and that is to
Okay.
believe in chat. Chat, can all of you believe just really, really, really hard that you can see me? Like as hard as you can.
Can you help us believe?
Please
Chat?
believe.
Believe that you can maybe see like a face? You know?
Oh, wait a minute. Oh, no, okay, now it's starting to come through a little bit. I think there might be some interference here, but I'm
The
starting
fog's
to
slowly lifting.
Yeah, I feel like maybe like it's buffering or it's refreshing, and I can see kind of like an outline of you.
I think we're getting there.
Okay, yeah. Chat, keep believing here, because the more you believe, the more of Scala that we're seeing here, and I'm feeling it. So let's do this.
I think we got this.
There we go. Okay. Very good.
There we go. That looks like me.
Oh my goodness. It does, and it is heckin' adorable.
So, hi everybody. I am going to sort of follow Board's example, and tonight I will be coming to you in what is the weirdest brush I can do this in? It's always the best question, isn't it? I think it's under
A Schala face shaped brush.
yes. Here, I'll do it. I'm coming to you in glorious
Doodle
vision.
vision.
TM no steal.
No steal. Alrighty. Well, I mean, this is fantastic that we've got. Well, first of all, that we've got this massive hype train going, and we haven't even really started in earnest yet. So, big
Yes.
shout outs to the Free Enterprise community for coming in strong and hyping what is going to be a really fun hour, I want to say, of us having a nice little chat here and talking about all kinds of different things. So let's go ahead and get started. So, Scala, well, let's start with this. And I alluded to it in the beginning. It looks like we have got a hot and fresh new emote here. That looks like my boy Sid.
Yes.
And he is crushing some popcorn right now. Why don't you talk about this emote here?
Yeah, so because of everyone's generosity like we're seeing right now and the generosity that we had during the football gauntlet, we still have lots of emote slots to fill. We're sort of doing them as I have time for them. But since I was going to be interviewed for tonight, I figured it was a good idea to go ahead and add a new one. So everyone get some free popcorn. So there, for whenever something juicy is happening on stream, you can enjoy with some delicious popcorn.
It's perfect. It's perfect because there's so many great applications for a popcorn emote that this one certainly is going to get plenty of use. We just completed a level 5 hype train, y'all. This is awesome. This
Y'all
is
so
great.
awesome. Thank you all so much.
Absolutely. The generosity is palpable in here. So I tell you what, Scala, let's go ahead and as much as the community is awesome and all of that stuff, let's face it and just be modest. We're here to talk about you, okay? We're here to talk to and about you and about all sorts of different things. So let's start here. Tell us a little bit about what got you into Final Fantasy IV, or I guess more generally Final Fantasy in the first place.
Okay. I could definitely tell this story. So here, just a little about me being like, oh my god. Okay, so here we go. I want everyone to come back with me to the late 80s, early 90s. Woo! I was very, very lucky in that the people in my life who played video games were actually, let's see if I could do a quick doodle here, were actually my mom. My mom was the person in my life who played video games. To do a quick Scala mom. And also my aunt, so who is her sister. So because of that, I grew up always, never sort of seeing video games as something that was, sort of not for girls, I guess is the best way to put it. As far as for getting into Final Fantasy itself, my mom and my aunt would sort of play the games together. They would sort of tag team. And we did have an original Nintendo, and we definitely played, like the original Final Fantasy 1 back all those days. And I sort of explained it that like Final Fantasy was like my bedtime stories growing up. You get home from school and you get to watch, my mom and my aunt would come by and they would help, play the games and everything. And so I got to watch that, cheer them on. And yeah, that was sort of like my sort of introduction to video games when I was but a teeny tiny little baby Scala.
Yeah.
As for Final Fantasy IV in particular, we got that pretty much right when it came out, like back in 91.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it was like an immediate favorite in my house. Where both me and my younger brother would watch it being played. Sort of do a very quick doodle of my brother. To the point where, like I said, it was sort of like this every day, sort of, especially on the weekends were like the big times where we get to watch. And there actually is here, I'll tell the story because my brother would be remiss if I did not tell the sort of apocryphal family story about how my mom and aunt were both working together to try to figure out how to beat Azura in FF4. So
Okay.
trying to figure it out. And my brother kept interrupting them. So they actually just go and just you know what? Just go outside. Just go elsewhere for a tiny bit while we could beat Ashura. And
Nice.
he was so mad. He to this day he considers it to be a great, insult to him that he was not allowed in the room. And we're like, but you just needed to chill. You're a little
Very nice.
yeah, and but because of that, I mean, my brother is actually, so we sort of all sort of grew up in this little gaming family. My brother's actually the reason why I have the online name Scala, because he joined a gaming forum, and he joined. I am not good at doing anything near Torima's style. But anyway, he joined a forum as Janus, and then I joked, I'm like, well, if I'm going to join this forum and I'm like your older sister, then I have to join a Scala, right? Right? That's totally how that works, and then we'll carry the Chrono Trigger tradition forward. Yeah, and my brother and I still get along. He actually still owns our original SNES that we had growing up, and still has like all of our games and everything. Oh no, happy Scala, not a grumpy Scala. Yeah. So there you go. That's sort of like a little like growing up sort of family thing. I'm happy to also talk about like video game fandom in general because I've been involved in that for a very, very, very long time.
Okay, well then let's do that. I mean, we're talking about games now from the Super Nintendo era, obviously with Final Fantasy IV and Chrono Trigger being so significant to you in ways that are quite obvious.
Mm-hmm.
But uh, what has so since then, like what has your gaming um preferences been like, throughout the years, even at, coming up from childhood and kind of bringing you more to current times?
It's basically always been Final Fantasy and Square Enix games. Like that's
Gotcha.
like not an exaggeration. Um, as far I sort of while I was like aware of stuff happening like in sort of like the internets, I got on the internet roughly I think right around like 98 or so. Yeah, it's roughly right around 98. Which was actually like something like really big for me because, even though other kids, who I grew up around like played video games, no one else was like super into Final Fantasy. Like it just like wasn't a thing. So, it's like 1998 and I can get on the internet and I learned that there are other people who love Final Fantasy like as much as I do, and I just like kind of lose my mind a little bit. It's just like, oh my god, it's so cool. Other people are out there. And I spent a lot of time, sort of getting used to that kind of space. Um, I have been involved in like fan art and fanfic communities. Again, no one is surprised. For a very long time. But my sort of first like real foray into like actual like community stuff was 100% within Final Fantasy VII. Um, there, get like some 97 cloud. um, where I ended up. Here you go. For those of you who are in the Final Fantasy VII community in the early 2000s, I worked alongside AdventChildren.net as one of their fan translators. Which that sort of
Oh,
yeah, so that kind of got me into like fan translation scene and everything. A lot of their stuff, that site no longer exists. A lot of the stuff that we worked on now lives on at thelifestream.net.
okay.
I was sort of like a background kind of person with this. I liked like small like chunks. I did a lot of stuff with Crisis Core because oh my god, I love Crisis Core.
Yeah,
um, and I worked on stuff like the FF7, like our attempt at an FF7 unified timeline and all this other sort of fun stuff.
sure.
Uh, I was involved in the Dissidia community for a while. Did a little bit in FF15 community. But I'll sort of talk a little bit about how I got to the speedrunning community.
Yeah.
I won't go into the whole big story. All you kind of really need to know is that I had a real roller coaster of a year in 2017, and unfortunately, it ended with me having a falling out with like a bunch of friends, which was pretty sad at the time. I'm okay now. Um, but I sort of looked, kind of at things and it's like, well, now I'm going to have a lot more time and a lot more energy on my hands. What do I want to do with all of that? And my thought was, well, I like charity marathons. I've been working for many years as part of the Desert Bus for Hope craft along. And I was like, well, I like that stuff. And I knew about speedrunning sort of in a vague sort of sense. I had watched like a couple of GDQs and I had like, kind of like a vague idea about it. And when I was feeling, kind of super down, one of my friends had actually suggested, like, well, have you ever like actually just like sat and just watched RPG speedruns? Like they're kind of relaxed in their own way.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started watching it. Like, you know what? I bet I could probably do this if I put mind to it. So in 2018, I made the sort of decision that's like, all right, I'm going to try to learn how to speedrun. And as it happened, that was the AGGQ where Rivers did his no CW run.
Right.
And I sort of got started doing Paladin percent not too long after that. And the FF4 community kind of found me. They're like, "Oh, hey, there's been new people like learning and everything," and they invited me. They're like, "Hey, you can come and join the Discord and everything." And I was like, "Oh, cool! This is nice." And through that, I also met the RPG Valkyries, which I'm now a member of.
Right.
And it was just this sort of interesting confluence of things because it was only like a little while after I joined the FF4 Discord that that Boardface came in and was like, "Hey, I have a randomizer now," and then it was like this whole thing where we were like, "Hey, we need to actually like design a tracker for this," and I was like, "Oh, well, I mean, I know kind of what a tracker is. I could probably do it. We could just sort of repurpose some things." And that was actually what got me involved was I designed the tracker icons. And then after that, I think it was that oh yeah, it was a little bit before then. In that spring, I then kind of got offered to start like making the layouts, and then eventually Board just like kind of came to me, and I'd already had been like helping out with um like submitting D-Sprite ideas, and he was just like, "Do you just want to do that? Do you just want to do like Z sprites as a thing for us, so that way I can go and work on other things that require actual technical expertise?" And that's basically the story about how I got involved with free enterprise. There you go.
So I definitely want to delve more into your association with free enterprise and the community and all the artwork that you want to do with it. But I want to go back for a minute here
Mhm.
because you talked about a lot about all of the different involvements that you've had in communities with the different Final Fantasy games.
Yes.
So before we take a deep dive into free enterprise itself, I wanted to ask you what do you think it is that has kept you so involved and absorbed with the Final Fantasy universe in general, that you with in all of these different ways you've been involved in communities for many of the different games in some way, shape, or form? What do you attribute that to?
Oh, there's so much going on with Final Fantasy, and I've had. You could go ahead and ask the Edge Case Collective about how I have many thoughts about Final Fantasy. In general, a lot of it is that I like the kind of stories that Final Fantasy tells. I like the kind of characters that are created as part of Final Fantasy. I like a lot of the messaging. I like a lot of the themes. Even though I have like skipped over like some of them. Like I skipped over like 13. That was actually just because I just didn't have a PS3. I just didn't have a PS3 at the time. Um, but I've played most of the mainline series and plenty of the side games. Um, but yeah, I think it's I sort of I was talking about this, I think, with our good community member Dusty Griff, who has been playing through the different games because he has been playing FF2, which I know is for a lot of people not their favorite, and that's totally fine and valid. But I am absolutely on team defend FF2. That
Okay.
so long as I can sort of find something in there to latch onto, I'm like less concerned about gameplay stuff, so long as there are elements, usually characters, sometimes storylines within that I can connect to. And what I might connect to might be different every time. I kind of go into everything not knowing where, things are going to lead me. But I definitely think that the person who I think said it best is actually Aerith's remake voice actress, Brianna White, who talked about how when you sort of play a Final Fantasy game, um, when it really hits you, you fall in love with that game and you fall in love with the characters within it.
Sure.
And that's definitely a part of it. Other part is that my partner is also a super huge Final Fantasy fan, and it's one of our
Mhm.
favorite things to talk about. So having that connection there too, and I'm like, no, 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 you gotta have a little smirk. There you go. So I've been quite doing a little doodle of them. But
Oh,
yeah,
for your partner?
my partner Oren. There we
Oh,
go.
very nice.
Get the little glass. And all these are like super fast.
Well,
So
I mean, the fact that you can carry on a conversation while doing all of these doodles super quick is rather remarkable. I know I've
oh,
already
thanks.
seen quite a few comments in chat about people who are just as impressed by this as I am. So it is pretty cool to see. By all means, continue to do so, and that actually is a nice segue into kind of more of the deep dive into the free enterprise portion of this discussion and your involvement with it. Now, obviously, as we can see here, and as anybody who knows you or anybody knows anything about the free enterprise community, is that your main contribution is through just the absolute plethora of artwork that you've done for the free enterprise randomizer. But before we
Mhm.
talk specifically about the rando itself, I want to just talk about you and artwork in general. Take us back to when you really started to fall in love with creating this artwork, like the mediums that you were using, and kind of how your style has developed over the years.
Uh, okay, so I've been doing art since as long as I can remember. Trust me, there are 100%. My dad has like a collection of like all sorts of different Scala art from all over the years. Here I'll found like this guy while I was moving, where I kind of had draw this like cat who is like a dad, I guess. But there's all sorts of like that sort of stuff. Um, a lot of it I think is just like having accidentally drew a Raymond. Shout out to all my Animal Crossing friendos out there. um, but yeah, basically as long as I can remember, I was doing art. I was in middle school and high school a part of art club. Again, no one is surprised. As far as like sort of, I kind of have the very sort of anime and manga influence style. That was just more like me getting into anime when I was a kid. I would say kid, about middle school age.
Okay.
Because that was when like the Pokemon anime started. Do a little
Yeah.
like
By the
Team
way,
Rocket.
my son is going to be in middle schoul next year. He's still a kid. That's
Yeah.
still kid range. Okay? Don't.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, yeah. So we had Sailor Moon, we had Pokemon, and then like I said,
Mhm.
Final Fantasy VII came out. which is also in that sort of anime style. And I think like a lot of like 90s kids, like that whole stuff kind of influenced me a lot. Yeah, no, I meant erase. There we go. But I actually here you go. This is the actual like big secret. I am not like professionally trained in the least littlest bit. I am 100% self-taught with everything that I do.
Wait, what?
Yeah. So
Wow.
like I said, I took like art classes in like middle school and high school, but I've never, and I have like taken, I think he has like sleeves like that. Like sort of basic, sort of like how to Photoshop and how to do like Illustrator stuff, but that's about it. But it was I have to actually stop and do math, about 10 years ago or so, roughly around then, that I discovered vector art, namely Inkscape. There you go. This is my plug about Inkscape. If you want to do vector art and you don't want to have to pay the big Adobe bucks, Inkscape is out there. It's completely free. It's 100% made by its own community. It's really great. There you go. Inkscape.org. That better E. And yeah, then I started doing stuff like I've once I got into Inkscape, I then also got a silhouette. It's a desktop cutter that you can use it to cut paper and vinyl. And I started just doing a bunch of crafts with it and sort of figuring out, okay, how do I make cool vector art and all that good stuff. Usually stuff starts as a sketch and then it goes outward from there.
Yeah. For those that might not feel like asking, but in the interest of disclosure, can you describe what exactly vector art is?
Yeah, so what I'm doing now, this is what we would call raster art, or also pixel art works, where it's made up of like all the little colorful pixels that you think of. With vector art instead, we have sort of more points and lines, which means that when you take vector art, you can scale it however large you want or however small you want, and you will never lose any fidelity. The other thing with vector art is vector art you can do with a mouse. And until literally this year, I did all my art with a mouse.
Wow.
Just because I didn't have a super cool tablet. I have one now that I'm actually like drawing on. But for a very long time, everything was done just with Inkscape. Give me 1 second. Hopefully, Dave, this will not mess up your crop. I will see how quickly I can import an image to sort of give you an idea of like some of the other stuff I've done. It is. I have to remember which folder it's in. And then there it is. We'll sort of do what I consider to be like, if I can be said to have a masterpiece, it's this one. I have to turn off stuff. There you go. Hopefully you can all see that okay.
This, I mean, that looks like stained glass.
It's paper.
That's paper?
It's paper.
You got to tell us how you made this.
Here, let me see if I can get one other image that's maybe from the front so you can see a little better. There we go. Now you can see better. That's from the front. Yeah, so this was for which Desert Bus was this? Desert Bus 9. Desert Bus 9. So it is 1,000 pieces of paper that all started as vector art, where I kind of went in and did all the line work first, and then everything underneath are little pieces that are then glued to the line art, and then there's like a backing sandwich behind it. And yeah, so in depicting the original seven summons that started in Final Fantasy III, plus also a chocobo and a moogle and the
4 crystals.
the 4 crystals. And the fun part, this is my favorite little thing. The archway is actually all the logo colors of the different games from 1 to 15.
Is it really?
Yeah, so you can see.
Wow.
So 1, 2. So yeah, so you have like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 are all there in their own sort of way. But yeah, that's like the stuff I do when I do like really intense stuff. That's still, like I said, the most intense thing I've ever created. I did see a comment in chat being like, I want there is exactly one of these that exists. One.
From
And
start to finish, how long did that take you to make?
I don't want. I could not put a time. I basically Desert Bus asked us for our proposals in about May, and then I sent it out to them in about September or October. So somewhere around 4 to 5 like month, like on and off doing stuff.
Certainly, yeah.
Uh,
Wow, that's
But yeah, I'm sorry to anyone who wants it. It belongs to a wonderful person whose Twitch name is Mr. Horrible, who who paid over $6,000 for it. Now, let me say, none of that went to me. That all went to charity, which
right,
is
right.
amazing because that helped like almost like 1,000 kids. So that's more than I could ever do on my own, and that's why I do charity events.
That is unbelievable. $6,000 for a creation of yours is how does that make you feel when you hear that
Oh,
number for something that you poured so much time
I
into to create, and you learn that that's the return? What goes through your mind when you hear that?
just cry.
Yeah, yeah, I don't
um,
blame you.
I've been, like I said, the Desert Bus is the main reason why I do charity events. I know I'll talk about them a lot, but they do so much real good in the world. And the best thing is that the people who do Desert Bus, like they treat like the crafters and the prize makers like as the absolute like all stars, and it encourages us to send them our absolute best stuff.
Oh, certainly.
And just the amount of love and generosity that goes into that event is amazing. And at this point, they basically just give me carte blanche to do what I want.
Yeah.
And so basically, it's my one project a year where I'm like, great, I can do whatever I want and not have to worry about what. Like if I have to do a commission for someone, I have to put a dollar value on that,
Hmm.
to make it
Hmm.
fair for me and for them. But for this, it's like, nah, it's going to be whatever I want it to be, and it's something that I would never be able to figure out a actual like dollar amount for. But that's okay.
Yeah.
Someone else, the whoever buys it has set the dollar amount for it.
Sure. Sure. Yeah, that's not that's not your territory. You just create the stuff and make it look absolutely gorgeous. Like what I mean, I've been sitting here this whole time we've been talking and just absorbing in different details all throughout this. It's absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah, unfortunately, some of them. You can't see it, but behind Odin is actually Odin's shield, is like his sort of like elemental representation. But it was really fun because I basically kind of got to design the summons the way I wanted to. Obviously, there were a lot taken from different inspirations within it, but like for example, like the way I did Shiva is very different than you would see Shiva in a Final Fantasy game.
Sure.
But
Sure.
it was a lot of fun and a lot of hard work. But
Oh, no question.
that's also something that me and my partner Oren share. They were the one they got me into Desert Bus, and they also
Cool.
every single year do a project. So if you like
Yeah.
chocobos, just stick around for Desert Bus because that's when Oren does their annual chocobo, and they're always amazing.
Nice. Very cool. Do you want to drop a quick plug for them before we move on
Yes,
to another topic here?
it is. If you want to go look them up, You can follow them. Let me actually do this a little smaller. So they are on Twitter at, I believe it's just at Desert Bus. And then
Okay.
it's desertbus.org. They are run by Loading Ready Run, who is a Canadian streaming team. And they do it every November, is when you can find it. It is literally a GDQ length marathon where they play the world's most boring game, which is Desert Bus, made by Penn and Teller. And they do it for 24/7 for a week. And instead, there's just a lot of fun, happy things happening, like auctioning off an entire sheet of uncut Magic cards, for example.
Whoa.
Yeah, or or a trip to go to Gearbox Studios. It's
Nice.
a lot of fun. Definitely go give them a follow. They're all wonderful people.
Nice. Well, good. I'm glad we were able to discuss that because I mean, I personally know how much you are involved with them and how much they mean to you. So I'm glad that we got an opportunity to talk about that here. That is, I know that was important. So let's talk about how you craft and the type of artwork that you make specifically for Final Fantasy IV Free Enterprise. And I think we'll start in the obvious place, which is the Z sprites. I know that is something that brings a lot of delight to everyone that runs it. I don't know if there ever has been in history a seed of Free Enterprise run that did not have the Z flag on.
Yes, it was. Because it was funny when Niram was still running Seed of the Week. He actually did do a Seed of the Week that did not have the Z flag turned on, and the seed name was Heresy.
So there you go. That kind of underscores the point that I was trying to make there. But that's funny. That's a good anecdote. So okay, so let's talk about creating artwork for the Z sprites. Now, obviously, there's over 450 different sprites that can possibly pop up in Seed?
It's around there. We're working on finalizing what's going to be added to version 4.1, but as of
Okay.
version 4.0, it's around 450. We
Gotcha.
keep the exact number, and the exact list is a secret because we want everyone to be surprised.
Sure, of course. Of course. So first question is, obviously not all of these sprites and all of this artwork is created equal when you are when you're making them. Can you tell us about a little bit of the different processes that go into making each Z sprite viable for use in the game itself?
Yeah, I actually have an example.
Okay.
Hey, I have one I prepared earlier. So we'll talk about one of the Z sprites. I kind of went through and I wanted to find one that was a good example. So we're actually going to look at Unalesca. So
Oh.
people kind of know this, but a lot of sort of the secret sauce is that Square Enix themselves have produced a lot of really fantastic pixel art of their later games and later characters.
Okay.
Through some of their different mobile games like Pictologica and Record Keeper, like the two big ones.
Sure.
Usually when it comes to adding especially stuff for Final Fantasy, usually that's where I sort of first look. So yeah. But if you actually take a really good look at her, she's designed for a 32 color palette. And that's not what we have on the SNES. That's the actual big challenge with doing the Z sprites is that we are restricted to the limitations of the original Super Nintendo, and we
Right.
can't go outside of that. So that means that the size that we have to work with, we have a canvas of about 140 pixels tall. Exactly 140 pixels tall by roughly 200-ish wide.
Is that it?
That's it. That's the whole area.
Wow. Okay.
And then for colors, we have one color always has to be transparency. and then and then we have 15 colors after that. So there's only
Okay.
16 in total that we get to work with.
Right.
But of those, only 15 of them I can actually work with.
Sure.
So, like I said, so you sort of can look at Unalesca kind of as she is here. Let me kind of pop a layer where I can draw. So you can kind of see, and I'll kind of switch this to white so you can see a little better. So you can see like on like the tendrils there, we have like this pink, for example. We have like this extra shading that happens in her hair. And we have sort of like this sort of shaded area in the back. All of that is stuff that we then kind of have to figure out like where we can sort of sacrifice colors, where can we simplify to then make this useful for the Sinesse. So this is what happens after we did all the sort of the downsampling that we needed to. So you can see now the underbelly of the tendril is now matches. It's now the same sort of golden color. We changed some of the colors here on the face. We sort of evened out the shading in here, and then we had to reduce the amount of shading that's on her hair.
Okay.
And a lot of this is done via Photoshop. Photoshop does have built-in tools to help with downsampling, but a lot of stuff has to then usually be tweaked a little bit. One of the best tools that we use is this functionality called Force Palette, which basically means that I can make it so that way it has to include certain colors and doesn't try to swap them or to color match them. So, for example, like this whole sort of section up here where the actual Unalesca is, we had to force palette that to remain like with the little green and the little sort of skin tones there. But it's going to depend a lot. For some Z sprites, there's definitely been Z sprites I have basically cut out of screenshots because the sprite rips don't exist.
Sure. That actually kind of led me to the next question that I was going to ask you, is that, certainly there are going to be lots of sprites that you use that are going to be from Nintendo or Super Nintendo games. So the palettes and the sizing is going to work out pretty well. But then obviously there's going to be things that go outside of the Super Nintendo and really outside of video games altogether. Talk to us about some of the sprites that you've had to create basically from scratch and how you kind of had to use the limitations that you just described to make them actually kind of, be expressive and to pop the way that you wanted them to.
Let's see. I got two of those I can kind of go ahead and pull up. Give me 1 second to bring them over to where y'all can see them.
Okay.
Let's see. Because of course I have a ginormous folder of just this. Is it? We got that one. I'll have to, because I'm pulling these in. They're going to be a little fuzzy. I'm going to apologize for that ahead of time. Just because I'm making them large enough so that way we can all see. Yeah, you can see that it got okay there. I'm going to actually just hold this here so you can actually see the pixels. But let's talk about Cuphead, which is
I was
a
going to
game.
say, I was guessing this is a character from that game.
Yes, this is King Dice from Cuphead.
Okay.
Which Cuphead is a hand-drawn game.
Right.
But all the drawings though exist as individual like animation cells, sprites
Sure.
that you can then work with. So, and also Cuphead is designed for an HD screen for a 1080p 720 like scale,
Right.
which is very different than what we just sort of talked about. So
Mhm.
doing something like this, I had to first of all make it small enough that it would actually fit in the area. And then I had to go through and then downsample it and I had to do this one basically by hand to go through and clean up and make it so that way it would actually work on a Sinesse. So there's that sort of style, but that was still working off like an actual, like people had gone through. There's a wonderful community of people who do who rip like sprites and everything out of games, so that way you can see them 100% clearly. Shout outs to Spriters Resource.
Oh yeah.
But then there's other ones. We'll talk about, say, the one I had to do like the most amount of work on. I believe, yeah, there she is. And these are just the reason why, by the way, there are all these like weird, colorful backgrounds is because that's what we have to do to make it so that way we can clearly identify what is the treat this color as transparent color.
Yeah, no, I get it. I get it.
That's why a lot of them will have backgrounds in like hot pink or like bright, bright green.
Sure, sure.
Yeah. So this is Gremory. This is from, I believe it's Bloodstained Curse of the Moon.
Okay.
Which has never been like sprite ripped, but I'm like, there's a villainess and she's a moon demon, and I gotta have her in free enterprise.
Of course.
So I recreated this one like by hand from screenshots, like going through just line by line, reworking her like one pixel at a time.
Oh, wow. How long would you say that took you?
That this one's probably one of the ones I put like the most amount of work. I kind of a lot of stuff I do like over the course of like a couple like nights and everything.
Okay.
But yeah, I was definitely just chilling in people's Twitch chat, just lurking while I was like going through and reworking
Sure.
this. And then as far as I saw a question in chat, which one is my favorite? It's definitely the one that I made. One of the ones that I made. Let's see. It should be. Yeah, I'm going to apologize because it has a bright, bright, bright pink background.
Okay.
Oh yeah, it's up in here. But I'm sure a couple of you know what this is probably going to be. It's the animals, which was the 2019 GDQ sprite, which this is one that I designed completely like from scratch for
That's
like
so great.
For the big animal.
You're right. That's so great.
Which that took that was like a lot of work to actually go through and design like a whole like giant sprite.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But it was a lot of fun. I learned a lot doing it, and then we also added in the animals themselves, kind of hanging out with their big buddy.
Yeah, exactly.
Which
So you'd say this is your favorite one that you've made?
Yeah, this one I think overall, just because not only did I put a lot of work into it, and then that work went to help raise money for charity, but also I got to be in the room. Like there,
Yeah.
I got to go to that GDQ 2019 for a DGQ 2019. I got to go, and it was such a wonderful experience because remember, I had only been in the speedrunning community for a year.
Yeah.
A year, and then I was already involved in something that went to GDQ, and it was great because only Board had seen it. The other commentators, which was I believe Natara and Poexel, had not seen it. And then I was there also with Demarine. We were the two trackers.
Mm-hmm.
And to kind of be in the room for that moment, for when it an Invent, sorry, Invent.
Yeah, I was gonna say Invenerable was part of it too.
He was also my roommate. I probably should have remembered. I'm sorry.
Ooh.
I am now on no longer a mod in Invent's chat.
You are on the poop list.
No, Invent too. They're all fantastic, but basically just to be surrounded by the free enterprise community, and in the room when that happened, and like to hear like everyone get like super duper like excited about the whole thing, and it was just like cheering, and afterwards there were like big hugs, and I don't know, it's connected to a lot of really good memories, and it made me
absolutely.
really, really happy.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So obviously, there's this one that you have curated specifically for that run. I know that you did 2 specific sprites that were patterned after both Invenerable and Rivers for the most recent tournament that happened here. What about some of the other sprites that you have made specifically for events or for particular things that you feel like are notable, or ones that you think of fondly?
I actually have to look because I have been lucky to do a bunch of them. Uh, y'all can't see it, but I'm frantically looking through my giant folder of Z sprites. Oh, one that I really liked that was part of an event. Oh wait, actually, you know what? Yeah, I know exactly which one we're talking about. I'll do two more. Um,
Okay.
one which was for, because I thought it was a pretty funny request of us. Usually, I'm allowed to pick um what it's going to be, but occasionally we let other people have some say in it. When High Spirits, when we did our appearance at Questing for Glory,
Oh, yes.
asked that we make it so that way everyone could fight the logo. I was actually super happy with how well this this worked out.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
That one I really liked a lot. And then the one of the more recent ones that we did, not open, import, was for Edge Case Collective, where I made people fight Zeromus, but he's in Mario Paint.
Nice. That's fantastic.
Is there any Z sprite I would want to rework? There's a lot of names I want to go back and like rework. Like that's like on Scala's homework list. I think of other ones I would actually. The thing is that when you have like so many of them, it's hard sometimes to sort of shuffle through, because usually I have to like see it, and then my brain will be like, "Oh yeah, 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 I should rework that one."
Right.
Um, I I will say I wish there was a better option for Final Fantasy Type 0 than what I ended up using, which was Celestial Shinryu, because everyone keeps complaining. They're like, "I don't know what that one is." And I'm like, that was the best thing I got for that game.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
You can only take what you're given there, so I get
Uh
that.
yeah. So,
Yeah. So obviously the Z sprites that you make are a huge part of your contribution as far as your artwork goes for Free Enterprise, but that's not all of it. There's also what I know you like to refer to as the fab palettes, the different colors for the actual usable characters there. Talk a little bit about how you conceived some of those palettes, kind of some of the theming that you did. And again, we could talk about the limitations and kind of some of the extra work you need to do with the sprites to make some of those specific palettes really work in their application.
yeah, I admit, like, well, a lot of people associate me with the Z flag, which I love, and trust me, I sort of joke that like I've gotten the chance to sort of leave, my mark on certain things. But the fact that I have gotten an entire community to ask at the end of every seed, whose butt are we going to kick tonight, is definitely one that I that's a badge I wear with pride.
I'm sure you do.
But as far as the fat pellets go, so this was Board came to me with this whole concept. Actually, I think even before I was doing the Z sprites. Uh, we should actually probably let people know, like, if you want to. Uh, this I can show you what. So this is what a sprite sheet actually looks like in Final Fantasy IV. This is what's in the
Okay.
actual game. I'm just using Edward because I happen to have Edwards on hand.
Gotcha.
So as you can see, then this is all done to sort of, make it, take up as least amount of space as possible.
Yeah.
But like when you're looking at this, as a human, you're like, that's a little hard to follow. You can definitely do it. Like you could take the time to sort of reassemble everything.
Yeah. Just seeing all of this disassembled, I almost like instinctively like reached for the reset button on my Super Nintendo, which is right here. Like, oh god, this is messed up.
but that's sort of what the Super Nintendo reads.
Yeah.
But to make this all sort of work, Board very, very, very kindly created human readable sprite sheets for me.
Oh, how considerate.
Yeah, so I actually will show. We'll use Edward again, and this was the sort of the first one that got completely finished was Red Mage Edward or Redward. Uh,
Redward?
Redward. They all have to have. I have to save the file as something.
Yeah.
But so I'll sort of go through, sort of explain. This is the secret sauce that actually goes into making the fab palettes work. So yeah, I'll sort of explain everything. So we up at the top here we have the actual different chunks of the sprite that will be basically we'll take this image and then will be cut up and made into one of those sprite sheets that exists in the game. But this is to help me kind of know where everything is going to exactly be. And then so we have all the different poses. So we have like sort of standard, we have walking forward, defending, we have like raising your hand to fight. We have his for casting, we have his sing command. And then down actually I don't know if you all can see my cursor. If you can't, I will go ahead and just here I'll boop a layer that I can now draw on top. Oh,
We
you
can.
can?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
cool. Yeah, so you have like in this corner you'll have the sort of special command, which for Edward is hide.
Yep.
And then you have your sort of your cheer at the end of the battle. You have your damage. You have your kneeling, and then you have dead.
Yep.
And that pattern is repeated for everyone. But what Board also did is that this is a very, very smart thing with programming with FF4. So the actual index order of the colors matters, because what happens is when the
Okay.
game looks at so when you have a sprite like this, there is a color index that exists for it. It's part of the data, which says like green is color 0. That's the transparent color. Then you have like black is color 1, white is color 2, kind of going up from there.
Okay.
So the order of that actually matters, and then the game knows when looking at this sprite what colors it can then affects for, say, status effects.
Piggy hooves and snout. I've been looking
Yes.
at this whole time and is so delighted by that.
Yeah. So, but it also works for how the game figures out how to do the pig, the toad, and the mini sprites.
Mhm.
Basically, all those sprites are exactly the same. It's just what colors get applied correlate to which character. So it uses so that there always will be a color that's used for the hooves and the snout of the pig, and then there's a mini hair and a mini shirt one, and then you have the skin tones; those become shades of purple, and eye color becomes black, mini skin, and then for the toad colors, it will usually be white and then one other accent color, and then we
Gotcha.
have the ones that always have to be white and black, and then transparent.
Yep.
So you have about 9 colors that are sort of occupied in the index, and then you have another 7 after that are sort of free reign colors that you can do whatever you want with.
Gotcha.
And sort of through that, we can then go through and sort of have a lot of space to kind of play around with. Um, so I will go and I'll have to sort of do the importing thing I was doing before, where I kind of have to just hold it. Let's see. There we are. Templates. So we'll talk a little bit about. There it is. Uh, Definitely one that required a lot of extra work. Was Adult Rydia. There we go. Oh wait, Dave, did I mess up your crop? I will have to adjust that.
I think it looks good.
Okay. There. There we go. So, and I actually will just Control Z and then redo this so you can see it better. There we go. See all those nice pixels.
Perfect.
Yeah. So with Rydia, we're using Terra Rydia. I was like, I really want to do Rydia, but like I don't want to have her be like all just basically 1 or 2 colors, because adult Rydia has only like a few colors on her sprite.
Yeah.
The actual trick of it is that her little hairpiece, it's holding the pink that's used for her piggy version.
Got it.
So what I did was I'm like, well, so long as I can color over the like that little like hairpiece, I then can free up more color space on her. And then sort of I went through and I had to do this completely by hand the first time to rework her sprites to start having more colors on them. It's not really more colors, but to have like a better distribution of colors, I think is the
Okay.
better way to put that.
Gotcha.
And that's sort of where um that this was like the point where I started really playing around more. This sort of like the first batch of fab ones were basically sort of taking the palettes that were already there and just sort of color shifting them. So like with Rydia, just changing all of her greens to blues, for example.
Sure.
But then like as we kind of kept going on, I kept getting like a bit more ambitious. So that's why we have something where let's like Rydia, but now with like Terra's palette, or we'll do one of Rosa's. That's a pretty good example. Uh, Rosa, yeah, this one, where we have Rosa, but as Marley from Chrono Trigger.
Right.
Where like the big difference is that we actually went and we put pants on her. She actually has pants in this version.
Right.
So again, but that's like hand recoloring stuff that has to happen. And I don't mind doing it for like certain things, but a lot of like I said, like the sort of like the first set is just sort of playing around with what already existed and just sort of seeing what happens when you just sort of swap colors around. But then like in what we call Fab Season 2 and Season 3, getting a bit bolder with changing around like the actual like clothing some characters would wear. Um, the main thing with High Conkers with skin tones is that again skin tones are kind of connected to status effects, so it's definitely one of those
Yeah.
situations where it could be tricky to kind of play with them. Um, and also right now we're at a point where we literally can't add anymore. I
Gotcha.
accidentally hit the limit. I didn't accidentally. Um, but yeah, it there's definitely a consideration for whether or not we might try shifting out and like sort of doing some cycling maybe later, just so that way we don't have to expand the ROM again
Sure.
like
Yeah.
we've had to
Yeah.
do in the past.
Oh boy. Now, with a lot of these palettes that you've created, and you've made reference here to this one for Rosa, it's patterned after Marley. The one you showed for Rydia, it's patterned after Terra. There's a lot of these different palettes that are patterned after different characters. Just like there is, and you can answer this for me here, just like there is no list for Z sprites that are in the game. There is no like list or point of reference for all of the different Z sprites and who they are supposed to represent. Is that correct?
For the fat palettes.
I'm sorry. Yes, for the Fab Pal. Excuse me.
Where that one I actually don't mind doing. I'm actually going to hopefully before we get into other big event things, just sort of take like a day or two and go onto the FE wiki and go through and actually make a palette guide list. So it's like,
Oh,
hey,
okay.
this is like because some of them are pretty vague references.
Yeah.
The one that's probably like this is a reference that Scala made for Scala.
Yeah. Sure. Which, hey,
uh,
considering you're the one that's creating them, that makes
which
sense.
is this one, which is one of the Edge ones, is very much a Scala did this for her own entertainment, which was to do Edge in the style of Aboromaru from Live Alive, which is like
Okay.
the deep square lore.
Nice. Nice.
This is also your suggestion. Go play Live Alive. It's really interesting. It's also
Oh.
really dark, but definitely give it like a chance.
Nice. So, well, cool. So, how would you compare the amount of work that goes into creating these fab palettes, uh, as opposed to what it takes to make the Z sprites?
These it's going to like vary from situation to situation. Like for a Z sprite, if there's a nice like clean sprite rip, that's easy to do. That's
Sure.
like here we'll give an example of this one because this one made me laugh. So I'll go around sometimes the Spriter's resource. You know, they update about once a week. I'll sort of stop by and be like, all right, cool. What you got that's new? What do I think might be interesting to put in? And one time when I stopped by, let's see, they're like, "Hey, did you know that there was a Barney the Dinosaur game on the
Oh
on this
no.
on the Genesis?"
Oh
And I'm
no.
like, "Really?" And then like I just see this sprite.
Oh Lord.
I'm like, "You know what? You know what? That's going in because that just makes me laugh."
Oh my goodness.
Dave says I'm not allowed to show the Thomas the Tank Engine one.
Wow.
But that's like something where it's already been cleaned up and has already sort of, basically it's just like cool, great. And it's already for a system that is, has the same SNS like color restrictions on it.
Sure.
So
Sure.
that was just like me being like, you know what? Sure. And just basically cropping it to the correct size and just throwing it into the pool and being like, it's everyone else's problem now. But with the fat palettes again, like some of the early ones which were just basically looking at the original palettes and then just sort of swapping colors around. Those got put together pretty quickly.
Mhm.
Let's see. I'm thinking of. I'm trying to think of. Oh yeah, Tella actually had a lot of like ones like that where it's just like, yeah, you just swap the colors around. I actually don't, which that's very easy to do in Photoshop, where I'm just like, yep, just swap this color for another color. That's great. And this one I know Inven likes to tease uh that this is the Vani Tella.
Anyway,
But
moving
anyway,
on.
yeah, it's just real easy just to swap those colors around. There you go.
I'm glad that one was so easy for you to make. That just brings me such great delight. Anyway, so let's talk about the actual randomizer itself and like your just kind of your thoughts on it. How much of it do you actually play?
I sort of joke. I think out of the devs, I'm like bored. I actually don't play all that much. I'm not. I have played it for sure. There's definitely footage of me playing free enterprise out there that exists. Definitely, I think it's still one of the top clips on the Valk channel. It's still 60 seconds of nothing but SchalaKitty laughing, and it's just me reacting to Yang at the back attack spot on Mount Ordeals. Because when that happens, oh hey, I no longer have my sketchy brush. Let's have the sketchy brush back. Because when that happens, Yang basically wraps like all the way around the screen, and I think it's the greatest graphical glitch of all time. But I have played it. I definitely did play it a little bit as well during some of the testing for version 2, which I get to then say the one thing that I did that I think helped benefited the free enterprise community the most was I found the original bug that existed with the spoon flag.
Okay.
So when Board added the spoon flag, um, the spoon has 225 attack power. The thing is that when we tried to equip it before the bug got fixed, the game didn't know what to do with that plus Edward's base attack power, and so it then underflowed and did like almost nothing.
Oh
So we
no.
so then we had to make it so Board fixed it, and so that way it does accurately set Edward's attack power at 255.
Excellent.
Which
Excellent.
there you go. Yeah, but I'm definitely someone who I just enjoy watching the different community stuff. I'm pretty sure I've watched like almost all of the community races, like a vast majority of the community races. I have watched
Yeah,
and or have done the restreaming on. Even with stuff like the Fabul Gauntlet, I tried to watch as much as I could.
sure.
And but as far as like, so I definitely have more of like I understand a lot of how stuff works in theory, but I'm not very good at executing on it. But that's fine. You know what? That's not what the community needs me to be. I'm more happy creating fun things and helping to run events more so than actually playing the game.
Gotcha. So, I mean, there are lots of really cool aspects and things that have been a part of free enterprise as it relates to how it's altered from Final Fantasy IV. But what would you say is your favorite kind of aspect of free enterprise that was inspired by Newtopia?
That was inspired by Newtopia. Well, you do know that the final boss of Newtopia is in free enterprise.
I'm sorry.
That Dearth is one of the 450 sprites you can get in free enterprise. You can absolutely fight Dearth in free enterprise.
Okay. Um, I listen, Scala, you and I are good friends. You and I
Yes.
are dear friends, but I'm gonna say that I don't believe you because I know how many seeds of this game get played. And if you're telling me, if you are honestly telling me that Dearth has popped up as a Z sprite, and I have yet to receive this many pings from my friends about, hey, Vonnie, you should probably check this out. This is something you'll appreciate. Yeah, okay.
To
So I'm not exactly
I mean, I'll pull up the file. I'll prove it. But it is in there. I promise you. Now the thing is that there definitely are sprites where like I have put them in and I have not caught them in the wild, and that's
really.
just how it goes. Um, no, it's in there. I have the list of what is active.
Yeah.
So, but yes, you can. I will say that yes, that is probably the biggest influence that Newtopia had on Free Enterprise. That I definitely made it so that way you could fight Dearth. So that is definitely in there. Also, I guess the good music with like the harp and everything. But
I'm sorry.
that's all. The good music. Though we definitely need to get like Dearth's theme like actually in.
Oh, wait, there's harp music too?
Well, no, there hasn't been yet, but we definitely need to get it in there. I
Oh,
was saying.
yes. Oh, yeah, yes.
I
Yeah.
need to I need to basically call up Calamity and be like, "Hey, Calm, like
Yeah.
that would be like a really cool thing that you could do for me and
Yeah.
my friend Dovani."
Right. But I mean, if you did want to get any of the tunes from Newtopia in there, which one would you want it to be, and why would you want it to be the theme from the Sea Sphere?
I Durf's theme. Durf's theme is the actual best song. We bantered back and forth about Sea Sphere versus Sky Sphere, which in that case it is Sky Sphere all the way every day. But
Mm-mm,
Durf's
no,
theme is the actual
no.
best.
From one or two?
From one. I like the one better than the two.
Really? Okay.
I like the fact that the melody is a lot clearer in Newtopia 1. I find that while it is a very playful remix in Newtopia 2, I like the original.
Okay. That's fair. That is fair. Well, I tell you what, we're probably going to be wrapping up here in just a couple minutes. But if there's anything that folks here in chat want to kind of toss in here to ask Scala, then please feel free to do so. And but I mean, before we do that, Scala, was there anything else that you wanted to discuss or wanted me to ask you about, or you wanted to talk about before we put a bow
Um,
on this whole deal?
I will say one. So I think people talk about what makes a good community, especially what makes a good community on Twitch, and it's definitely something that's been talked about recently. And this is one of the things that I think is actually very important with free enterprise is that from the very very start, like as soon as like a Discord was created, there have been women and LGBTQ people involved in the administration. And I think that is very important to have. And that's the reason why we've done, different things. Like if you watch, our streams, we try to make sure that when you see, a runner's name up there, that you also then, see their pronouns.
Yeah.
Is like, and I've worked really hard with Randomania to be like, all right, what can we do? And I think with a lot of communities, I think sort of step 0 is be welcoming and be as inclusive as you can, and then
Right.
listen to those people, and if at all possible, which should always be possible, put those people in positions where they can do good and where their voices and actions can benefit the community as a whole.
Yeah.
So there you go, a little thing. People ask, what is my favorite Z Sprite to see? I like the silly ones. The silly ones are the ones that make me the happiest to see. I actually, my absolute favorite thing to see is when the right Z Sprite meets with the right runner is the best. When Poexel actually mentioned this when he first started running it, that and it was after like I had gone through and added like tons and tons of sprites, my first like big sprite update, how he was really happy that we included Dark Gaia from Terranigma and was
Mhm.
very surprised that I like did like that cut. Or there's a wonderful uh variety streamer named Spoonie who's run some free enterprise,
Sure.
and she she has one of my favorite like emotes on Twitch, which is her angry Rossetti emote.
Yes. I I've seen you drop that in my chat on several occasions.
And I actually like included like Mr. Rossetti as a Z sprite sort of after seeing that. And when I found like a seed that actually had him in there, I like was telling her, I'm like, Spoonie, you should play this seed. And then she actually did. And when she got to the end and it was Mr. Rossetti, she just like laughed, cried so hard over it. And I'm like,
Nice.
that to me is like my favorite thing with the Z flag is when the surprise hits the right person, because there's like 400 of them, and you know what, sometimes it won't always hit. Like, there'll be plenty of times where people be like, I don't know what this is, but when it hits the person and they're just like, oh my god, I didn't expect that to be in there, or that makes me so happy to see, that is like the actual best for me.
Yeah. That is
So
very cool.
any other questions from, I know Muppets usually has done like the lightning round, but Vani real chill.
Yeah, well, I mean, we've been going pretty long here. You had plenty to talk about
Yes.
um with all of your different the forays into the artwork and how you got into Final Fantasy and whatnot. So I mean, but there was obviously plenty of very fascinating content here. Your contributions to free enterprise cannot be overstated. Just the actual aesthetic and look of it is largely your responsibility, and that is you've touched on it throughout this interview, but I just knowing you, I know that that is something that you hold in very high esteem, and you should. And that's just got to be really cool that every time every single person rolls a seed and plays it, that your fingerprints are all over how that presentation hits their eyeballs.
It is something that it makes me so happy to sort of be a part of something. And to answer your chat, yeah, I have drawn and did basically all the art that exists for Lunarian News Network. So I'll draw a Kermit Muppets, because that was sort of like the original thing that got started. Was there was like this little collection of sketches that I came up with, and it was just like, this is, we could have like cute little news people, and Muppets can be Kermit, and Kermit was just like, yeah, sorry, Muppets was just like, yep, that's Kermit, that's me, of course that's me. I'm like, of course it's you.
Perfect.
But just a big old uh thank you to everyone who has come, who has stuck around. And I'll do one last small thing. It's definitely has being involved in something like this definitely has been really good for me. I'm hoping every single finger crossed. Hello, pen. This one. Fingers crossed. With the Edge Case Collective's game jam that they've been running for Pride Month, I hope to actually put out a game. Fingers crossed.
Okay.
So you can follow me on Twitter. It's at SchalaKitty. Probably within a week or so, expect me to start rambling a lot about the fact that I guess I've made a game.
That's remarkable. I'm sure there's plenty of people here that would love to see it, would love to know what it's all about, and we will await it. Uh, we'll await it with bated breath. In the meantime, InVen just put a link in there for your Twitter, but then also you are twitch.tv/SchalaKitty, just as
Yep.
you are here as well. So people want to check you out there. That's definitely a good idea because again, and I'll just take a moment here and to say that I've dealt with and made friends with a lot of people in streaming communities, obviously a lot with Final Fantasy and things like that, and people that I enjoy and care about very much. And Scala, you are one of those people that is at the top of that list.
Aw, Monty.
I know you are such a good friend of mine, and
Aw.
I knew that this, anytime you and I get together, it's always fun, it's always laughs, it's always great. So I appreciate the opportunity to, yeah, and big shout out to the Free Enterprise folks and the brain trust at Lunarian News Network, who lets an outsider like myself come in to be a part of this whole process. And
You can always
and
change that, Vonnie. You can always change that.
I know.
Someday, chat. Someday we will get Vonnie to to play Free Enterprise. Someday.
Is someday indeed. So, but yeah, no, I the fact that they asked me to do this for you, I jumped at it because I knew we would always have a good time, as we always do whenever we get in VC for whatever it is that we do. It is it's you and me. Oh my god, that's so adorable. Oh my goodness. Oh yes, yeah. Well, I mean, you were did a fantastic job of being on the couch for my run at Limit Break last year. Speaking of fingers crossed, we
Fingers
have a Limit
crossed.
Break this year. You'll be there as well, on the couch.
I'm running in Limit Break, hopefully.
And you'll be running
Yes.
too. Yeah.
I'll be running Loom, which is a very, very, very sassy point and click adventure game.
Yes.
Also, yes, chat. If anyone is able to find the Durf sprite as a Z sprite, you have to tell both me and Vonnie, and then that will be the seed we make Vonnie run for his inaugural.
Okay, yeah, and watch it be like Catalyte or something like that. And I'm just like, cool, this is going to take me, 8.5 hours.
You'll get there, though.
I'll get there, yes. With the power of friendship and Invenerable, I will get there. So anyway, want to give a big shout out to another really good friend of mine who has been behind the scenes for this whole thing, and that is one Casual Geek Dave, who has been doing our restreaming and putting all of this together. He did a fantastic job of all that set up, so be sure to give him some love and a follow on Twitch as well. He is Casual Geek Dave, just like that. So very cool dude. Great that he did some background work for us here to make all this happen so that you could consume it. So indeed, big props to Dave. Scala, any last words, parting thoughts that you want to say before we kick it on over?
I will say please look forward to what we have coming up soon in the free enterprise community. It's summer. You all know what summer means, and you should definitely be getting hype because there's always going to be more wonderful stuff that we have coming your way.
Yeah. Yeah. Speaking of cool stuff that has come to the way of free enterprise fans, a reminder you saw us put it getting, and there's Ground Flyer dropping them in here. We do have a new emote for all of you subs at tier 1 here in the free enterprise channel. It is my man Sid chowing on the popcorn. There's going to be plenty of applications for that emote, so you know you will get some good mileage out of it. It is very heckin' good. I have to agree. So, alrighty. Well, with that said, on behalf of our restreamer, Casual Dave, and of course, my wonderful guest, the effervescent SchalaKitty.
And of course, the inspirational Von Yvonne.
Yes, my name is Von Yvonne. Again, thank you all so much for having me here. It was great to be a part of this and great to interview my dear friend Schala. And that is going to do it for us here. As far as where we go now that this is over.
Yeah, I think we're gonna go raid our good friend Invenerable. If I can put Schala on the spot here to do a raid for us.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Okay.
This is me making up for the fact that I forgot about Invenerable being on the couch at GDQ.
Yeah. So we are going to raid my friend and yours, Invenerable. Be sure to give him plenty of love on behalf of the Free Enterprise channel. And until next time, take care, folks.
Yeah, thanks everybody so much for joining us. We're taking a couple weeks off, but keep an eye on the Free Enterprise event calendar and Twitter, and we'll be back real soon. Give Invenerable some love for us. Thank you.